All right, making sure you have a good credit score might not be at the top of your priority list, but that number sometimes dictates what you can and can't buy.
Yes, and joining us with 3 steps on how to build your credit is Dara Duguay. She is the CEO of Credit Builders Alliance. Welcome, Dara.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining us. All right, so what's the first thing? What gets us into the bad profile? What brings our credit scores down?
Well, one of the biggest problems is if you have a thin file. There's estimates that about 100 million Americans are considered thin file. And what that essentially means is you don't have a lot of information on your credit report. You might just have an auto loan payment. And oftentimes, if you don't have enough information, you can't even generate a credit score. So it's really important to try to thicken your credit file and have more information.
So you obviously don't want people to go out and get a bunch of credit cards and ring those up, but what are some ways that you can look credit worthy and still be responsible?
Sure. Well, it's really important to have, several lines of credit. Credit is not a bad thing at all. It can really help you, and actually it's very instrumental in being able to do so many things in life. But what we find is that a lot of people, maybe they're young, they don't have the ability yet to have a mortgage, and so they're limited in types of credit that they can add to the file. And so that's why I'm really excited to be able to let you know today about a new product by Experian. It's free for consumers. It's called Experian Boost, and it's a way for the first time for consumers to give permission to actually link their bank accounts and have their positive payment history for their utility bill, their mobile phone bill appear for the first time on their credit report, and this can instantly boost their credit score.
Well, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, I was going to say that a lot of those, we do those credit monitoring systems, and a lot of people have been doing that just to make sure, even for fraud reasons. The scores that they generate, how accurate are they? Are they always the same as, say, what the mortgage company's going to find?
It's a great question. There is not one credit score. There are so many credit scores. So some of the big players are FICO and VantageScore. Even within those companies, there's many different versions of FICO, many different versions of VantageScore, and lenders have their own versions of credit scores. So it's not the same. There's not just one credit score out there. So that's something that's really important to know.
When my mother told me when I was 16, she was like, go to Sears and get yourself a credit card to help establish. I never shopped in Sears. I didn't even know what Sears was. And she was like, go get a Sears credit card. And they gave me a credit card at 16. Is that too young to have a credit card, or when should we start establishing credit?
Well, I think you should start establishing credit as soon as you're a young adult. What we're finding, ironically, is that in the past, if you were, for instance, a college student on campus, many of the campuses had, credit card companies that had booths everywhere. Almost everyone could get a credit card, and they would give you a Frisbee or a T-shirt in advance. Well, a lot of college campuses have cracked down on that, and they don't let the companies come anymore. And so, ironically, college students are now not using credit. And that's a time when they could get approved when they're a college student. And then after they graduate and they try to get a credit card, it becomes more difficult for them to actually get approved. And so we find that young people tend to use debit cards more than credit cards. And debit cards are not reported to the credit bureau. And so young adults in particular need to think about different ways that they can actually thicken their credit file if they're not using traditional instruments that are reported to the bureaus.
So I think a lot of young people are afraid, and probably their parents are too, about getting in trouble, getting too far in debt. But what would be your prescription for getting that card, building your credit? What's sort of the 3 steps to make sure you're increasing your score and not decreasing it by bad habits?
Sure. Well, one of the best things in terms of tips is to try not to charge more on that credit card each month than you can hope to pay in full when the bill comes. Resist the temptation when the bill comes and it says, just $20 minimum payment, to just pay that minimum. Pay them as much as you can. If you can pay your bill in full and not revolve, which means have a balance go from one month to the other, you're not paying any interest charges at all. So that's really, really, really important. And And it's really important also to, not get a million credit cards. You just need several. Do you need 8? Do you need 9? Do you need 10? If you have a lot of different lines of credit, or if you apply for a whole bunch of different lines of credit, this is going to show up on your credit report as something called an inquiry. And the more inquiries that you have, it can be a sign to the lender that, what's going on? This person looks like they're desperate for cash. And that's an indication of someone that might be a high credit risk.
Well, thank you, Dara. We so appreciate your time and this wonderful wisdom here. I got to go charge something right after the show.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure.
For more information about building your credit score, visit creditbuildersalliance.org. Just make sure you pay it off.
Absolutely.